Welcome to another episode of EB's Real Talk, where we go down the rabbit hole. We ask the questions that no one will ask, and we get the answers that everybody wants to hear. I'm sitting here today with my brother, one of the servants of this community, Mike Jones, breaking the cycle. What's going on?
How you doing, sir?
All right.
Thanks for having me on your show.
All right, we got a lot of things we're going to talk about, but first of all, introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about yourself.
My name is Mike Jones. I'm a returning citizen, or as some people like to say, an ex-offender. I did 4.5 years in prison. I worked every job from Burger King to General Motors. I started breaking the cycle in 2008. We have helped many people get jobs. We've helped many people open up bank accounts. We do job readiness education, social media education, customer service, etiquette education, voter registration. We canvass the community with different organizations, most recently with SEIU, and trying to raise voter awareness. And we just try to educate people. Our 4 E's is we try to educate, empower, employ you, and encourage you. So we try to bring them 4 things to the table at all times when we're dealing with people.
Okay, well, you think that just pick one of those things and give us an example of why is those one of the 4 pillars? There's 4 pillars, right?
Yeah.
Pick one of them and expand on it a little bit for us.
The biggest thing to me personally out of the 4 E's is education. Like breaking the cycle. So the name Breaking the Cycle is a black community, African American community. We need to break the cycle on so many levels. On the front of my business card, I have a picture of me and my at the time 3 boys. I have 4 kids. But the reason for that picture is because black men need to know that no matter what the situation is, you can never stop being a father to your children. So it's kind of to empower men that they can go to prison, fall down, and their kids still gonna love them, and they still owe it to their children to be a man. And a lot of times we don't do that, so we have to break that cycle on one level. The other level of education is we need to educate employers on why they should hire people with backgrounds. You know, this nation was founded on, and this is a funny dynamic to me. So I'm in a country where the principle of this country is in God we trust. We founded on the Bible. The main principle of the Bible is that Jesus Christ died for us, for our sins, for us to be forgiven of everything. But when Jesus died, he was hung on the cross as a felon of all things because he was disobedient to that law. So he was hung as a felon. We waiting for this felon to come back to take us to heaven. The principle of the Bible says, how can you love God who you've never seen, but not love your brothers that you see every day? So every felon that comes out of prison by saying that they don't deserve a second chance, you essentially saying I don't love you. But you go to church every day. I could pay tithes to your church, but I can't be forgiven. You understand what I'm saying? And that's just like the strangest thing to me going on. And people really don't like to talk about that, but I like to talk about stuff like that.
Do you think the church is stopping the education? Do you think that they're one of the people that the church as a body is stopping the education part, since you think that's the most important part?
I really do think that. I believe that. I think that, you know, so as far as education goes, Malcolm X said, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book, because they don't read anyway. Mm-hmm. And I've heard old ladies say, or older ladies, say that if somebody came to rob their house, they would put their money in the Bible because the thief ain't gonna touch no books. It's like we allergic to them, right? So we live in a society that we repeat everything somebody says. We go to church, we listen to the pastor preach, and if you ask somebody what they learned in church, they're gonna say, well, pastor said yada yada yada. Pastor said don't do this. Pastor said you should do that. But the Bible says, study yourself approved, because there will be many false prophets. There will be many false ministers. So how do you know that you're not going to a church that may not be living totally by the Bible? I recently went to a funeral in Dayton, Ohio for my cousin's ex-husband, and the preacher that did the eulogy was playing Texas Hold'em in his phone and gambling money. So like, why am I going to his church?
Right.
When clearly Jesus cast out people from his synagogue for turning into a den of thieves and casting lots, which is gambling in the Bible. You understand what I'm saying? So just think of all the people in his church that are quoting pastor, so to speak, and he putting money on his phone to play Texas Hold'em in front of me. You know what I'm saying? And then as it pertains to voter awareness, like, you know, so many times when I was out here canvassing, it was people saying that their vote didn't matter. My vote don't count. The popular vote don't count. You know, what's the electoral college? But I only hear this in the African American community, when so many people die for us to have the right to vote. And I really think it's disrespectful and disloyal and offensive to your children, your ancestors, your mother, your father, your community, when you don't exercise your right to vote. What I mean by that too is people don't understand the purpose of the Electoral College. So the Electoral College was put in place because, did you know that there's 8 states in the United States? Florida, California, Texas, New York, Ohio, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Michigan. The 8 states outpopulate the other 42 states in the United States.
I'm glad you brought that.
So the popular vote can't be in 8 states.
Correct.
It just can't be.
Correct.
So that's why they came up with the Electoral College, so the other 42 states will feel included in their vote for the president. Now this is the funny thing. The only thing that does change is the electoral votes. Why does that change? Because of the census. But most of my African American brothers and sisters don't like to register for the census because they think that's how they find out you got a warrant. They think that's how child support finds you. They think that's how my baby daddy gonna find out where I live. You understand what I'm saying? All these myths in our community with no foundation. Nowadays, to me, and people say, well, you know, the system was stacked against us and we just don't know. The internet is so, I mean, you can log into Wi-Fi to anybody. Information is more plentiful and free than it's ever been. You don't even have to be able to spell if you click your phone and ask Google, Siri, YouTube. You can ask them. And they're going, boop, boop. Oh, you want to know how to make pancakes? Here's a video. You know what I mean? Like, so it's really no excuse to be dumb or uneducated. There's no excuse for all of that. And I think that we as an African American people, we sometimes don't always take responsibility like we should and learn to educate ourselves. And I think that that's the reason we have a lot of problems in our community.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that is a leading cause of incarceration, or is incarceration a byproduct of just to say a conspiracy, like some people think?
Well,
or is it both?
53% in Ohio of all ex-offenders do not have a high school diploma or GED.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them don't even have a work history. So in prison, we used to call them in the way because they just in the way. You know, they out here getting in trouble. They're not contributing to society. They're not contributing to their community. A lot of them are followers. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They're not really leaders. I often, you know, say to my cousin, in joking this, but it's a lot of truth in the joke as well. My cousin always tells me that he's a leader. And my reply to my cousin is, a leader without any followers is just a man taking a walk. So, there's a lot of dudes just walking
well, actually,
in our community.
That means there'll be, according to one of the projects I saw online, some information I've dug up, 243,000 people in Ohio on probation. And so that means that many people may not have their GED, may not be able to get work. So how do you think, what are we supposed to be doing in the black community to help those people? Or are we doing it, and where's our shortfalls at?
I mean, I try to teach them in my class that we teach kind of by mimicking what other people and other races do, kind of. I mean, when I look at all the reentry landscape in Cuyahoga County, and I look at the people that come to our job fairs recently, 80% of them look like me, and it might be 10% Hispanic, maybe 15, but there are very few white people or Caucasian that come to these job fairs, that are in these job readiness, that are in these halfway houses. Very few in comparison to the amount that you see when you go to prison. You understand?
Okay,
what I'm
okay, now
saying?
explain it, yeah, because
So in prison, whites outpopulate blacks by sheer numbers. They gotta come home. So when they come home, why don't they struggle in their reentry process the way that we do?
Okay, so tell me why you think.
Well, because they play chess while we play checkers. You know, a lot of guys that come to me have what I say is major league expectations and minor league talent. Meaning that they want to make $20 an hour with no high school diploma, no GED, no work history, and a bunch of felonies on their resume. I really can't get you a job making $20 an hour with that on your resume. And then they don't know how to put lipstick on the pig and make it look sexy. Like the other races go to prison and they could do 10 years in prison. And they could do all kinds of stuff. They could be a cook. They could, work in the OPI. They could be, a maintenance guy in there. And on their resume, it's going to say, for this 10-year period, they work for the state of Ohio. You understand what I'm saying? And they moved because they relocated. The other thing is, and I recently seen this twice on the news. So 3 years ago, I seen this first thing. 3 years ago on the news, I saw where 80% of all employers in Cuyahoga County do not even do a background check. What they wait on you to do is tell them that you got a felony. Me personally, I don't believe in telling the truth to nobody that's lying to me. What I mean by that is when it says if you check yes, checking yes will not necessarily bar you from employment. That is, and always will be, a lie. Every time I've checked yes, I never got a call back. Now understand, I'm not advocating anybody to lie. I just simply leave it blank, which is really no different than banning the box, and I'm going to come back to my point about that. The Ban the Box initiative is which to take it off the application completely, so I've just been banning my own box in my own way. But what that has done has given me many interview opportunities to talk to somebody and make an impression, an opportunity to get a job. When I check yes, I take that away. The company don't have to do their due diligence. I tell my people in my class this every week. The first place I go look for a job at, when I open up the paper and the paper says college degree required, no felony allowed, drug free, and it's all in big bold letters, I go there early Monday morning and apply there and get hired there because all that they put in the paper was a screen tactic. Just before I could screen myself and say, I ain't got no diploma. I ain't got no degree.
Okay.
I got a felony. I ain't never gonna get no job. Yes, you will. Just go. Just go and apply. You'll surprise yourself.
Is there a conspiracy? Is there a conspiracy? Could there be a conspiracy on purpose that they would add those things to that to keep those of color away from those jobs? Or is that just something just made up in their head?
I mean, I think it is some truth to there being a conspiracy, for us as a people not to be successful. But again, I just think that lack of education among ourselves. Like I read a book by Steve Perry. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Okay, but he got a book called Man Up, No One Is Coming to Save Us. Okay. And that's truth. That's the truth. Like we as black people have to man up together. We have to take care of things in our own neighborhood. How can you get somebody to care what's going on in your house when you don't? As me and you talked about last night, we went to the Black Lives Matter meeting.
Yeah, nice.
How can Black Lives Matter be predominantly white? A white meeting for a black problem. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. There it was definitely. I almost wish I had the producer with me because there were white people in the street. They couldn't even get in the building because they were standing in line in the street. And you go in there and you expect that, okay, maybe just a few white people. And you go all the way in there and they have almost taken over the place. Not taking over, but they saying, hey, we want to help. Show us what to do to help. And it's in a black neighborhood and there's very few blacks in there. You know,
right? How can another race of people have more buy-in to a problem than you have? That's almost like, you know, I got a daughter. That's almost like my daughter getting raped and being in the hospital and you there and I'm not. I'm at home playing video games and you up there concerned looking for the killer, the rapist, and talking to the police about, you know, what can be done and how can we rectify this problem. And I'm at home playing NBA 2K17, but it's my daughter. You know, I went to a meeting down in Columbus one time where it was about Fair Hiring Act, right? For ex-offenders. And we get down there and I drive to Columbus and it's, for example, 200 people in the room. 50 of us is returning citizens. The other 150 are not returning citizens. The 50 people pretty much is 90% black, and over here you got 90% white over here trying to help us go and fight for a cause to get the Fair Hiring Act. You know, but the room should have been filled, in my eyes, with ex-offenders. Like, how do somebody else have more buy-in to a problem that I have than me?
What do you think it is? I mean, you bring it up. So last night, just be honest with you, as much research I do, never expected it to be that racial difference, never. So, but you've seen it twice or more than once. So tell me why you think that is. What creates that? What caused that, and how can we solve it?
I think a lot of times African Americans feel hopeless. I think that, I'll go back even further than that. I don't think that our parents, and particularly like my father, did, and I'm not saying anything bad about my dad. What I mean is people in that generation didn't do a good enough job in conveying what really happened back then and how powerful the movements was to get things changed. Like, they talk about Martin Luther King, but they ain't never really talked about Martin Luther King. They talk about Malcolm X, but they ain't never really talked about Malcolm X. You understand what I'm saying? They march, but they ain't never really showed us how to demonstrate and how to march. We kind of new to this, you know, and a lot of times I think that people in my father's generation, like, for example, I grew up in Oakwood Village. I'm glad I grew up out there, but I hate that I grew up out there. I like that I grew up out there so I could see what it's quote unquote like to live a good life, I guess. I hated it because my father and his constituents in that neighborhood felt that they was different than the blacks on 30th. And so we sometimes as African Americans, when we move to a suburb, we feel that we made it, but we really didn't. I grew up in Oakwood Village. I graduated from Bedford, but let me tell you about the dynamics out there. Oakwood Village, 95% black, 5% whatever race you want to fill in the blank. Walton Hills, 100% black, white, rather. Bedford, 95% white. Bedford Heights, it's a mix, but we all went to the same school, right?
So you're talking about Oakwood.
So understand that Cleveland is very segregated. So again, 98% of all the African Americans that you know that live in Euclid, they live in what I call the box. The box is 185th, 260th, Euclid, Lakeshore. That's the box. My mother's Puerto Rican. If you want to find the Puerto Ricans in Cleveland, you go to 25th and Clark area. You know, all the way up Clark, all the way down 25th. On the east side, you can find them over in the small pocket between Superior and St. Clair, 55th and 65th. That's where they stay at. The Asians stay down in Asian Town. And like I say, if you go in Solon, they got 2 or 3 streets where they let us live at. If you go to Richmond Heights, Beechwood area, I'll say Beechwood. If you go to Beechwood, they have an area that they actually call Little Africa. Interesting, right?
Right.
Then I'm gonna ask you a question and you tell me this right here. When you go through Shaker Square, right? You get to Shaker Square, you got Van Aken, and you got Shaker Boulevard. 90% of all the people that I know in my community or Van Aken to go across Lee Road to go to Warrensville. Because we know if we go Shaker Boulevard, if you get too far, you might get stopped.
Yep.
This is
That's
just
correct.
stuff that you know that happens that we don't like to talk about.
I was raised in Cleveland Heights, and you're right. That's the way we don't go home.
Exactly.
We go around the other way.
I mean,
That's
and
right.
even in Lakewood, they letting African Americans stay in Lakewood. But if you go in Lakewood, you know where the African Americans stay at because the police are in that area very heavy. Between West 117th, 140th, Detroit, Euclid, Madison. Detroit, Madison, and Franklin. I take that back. Are the streets that they sit on. You can almost drive right off the Shoreway all the way up Clifton Avenue in Detroit and never see a police officer.
Yes, right. Yeah.
The whole
That's right.
way up.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so we just
Why is that? Why is that? You think you point out some things here. Why was that planned, or did we just migrate there? Or what happened?
I mean, it was very much so planned, and we just accepted. You know, I did this canvassing job with a service union, right? And it's a very powerful service union. And I worked with a lot of different people, and the number one complaint among some of the people that canvassed with me was that they was from the east side of Cleveland, and they didn't know nothing about the west side. And some of the people from the west side didn't know nothing about the east side. And that's almost baffling to me, that you could live in a city like Cleveland, Ohio, and do you know how many people have never been to the west side from the east side? And how many people from the east side have never been to the west side? How many people in Cleveland have never been outside of Cleveland proper? I had a friend call me one time, and this is funny, but it's sad. I had a friend call me one time, and he stayed on St. Clair off 105, and he said, "Mike Jones, man, I'm out of town." And I said, "Where you at, Aunt?" "I'm in Amherst." I said, "You down the street."
Is that our mentality? Have our mentality of that. Our minimum mentality. A guy gave me a statistic, I don't know how true it was. It said that the average black person only moved within 1.5 square miles from where they live.
Right.
Originally.
And I believe.
Right.
But you don't get no experience from that. You don't learn anything from that. Like a lot of people feel like, okay, for example, with the vote, they feel like all the black people didn't get out and vote. It's not that. Once you get up outside of Cuyahoga County, between Cuyahoga County and the next nearest county, which is Richland County, which only got 5,000 blacks, by the way, by Mansfield, Ohio, there is no blacks.
Yeah.
Then to go from Richland County to the next nearest county, which is Franklin County, which is another hour away, before you get to some African American, again, there's fewer blacks than it was in Mansfield, which again had 5,000 blacks. So when you understand the way this state is set up, I mean, I got friends, I had a discussion with one of the supervisors at this job, and we was talking about the Tamir Rice case, right?
Okay.
And so it's a lot of stuff, myths out here about the Tamir Rice, and I ain't gonna get all into it.
No.
Okay.
Let's talk about that, because if you go to another story about it, it's not gonna make sense.
Okay,
It don't make sense. Let's talk about it.
So I understand that Tamir Rice, like my son, I went to his funeral. I didn't know Tamir Rice personally. I felt for his mother, but I also went to his funeral because, again, like I said, I got 3 sons, and now I got a grandson. That could have been any of my kids in that casket. More specifically, my son Andre, who is autistic, which Tamir Rice was, special needs. So they never mentioned that in the news, because that would have gave the whole case a whole nother element. From what I understand is that Tamir Rice was being recruited by a gang. His mother went several times to the police to get this rectified. It never happened. And he had this toy gun for protection so he could ward off the gang members from trying to mess with him. All right? But the conversation I had with this Caucasian gentleman who was from West Virginia, and this story I could tell in Ohio and any Willard, Greenwich, Shelby, cornfield town in Ohio that we have, he's talked about how he was trained at the age of between 5 and 7 to shoot a gun, to shoot a real gun, to hunt. He was deer hunting by the age of 10. I've seen young white kids trained to shoot the same way in front of the police and never get shot. Never get shot at. But this toy gun that you sell in the store that any kid can play with, oh, he shouldn't have had a toy gun. He should have knew better. Why should he know better? He's a child. An autistic child at that. Why should he know better? Why can't my kids, I don't let my kids play with guns. I bought my granddaughter a water gun and my son is 24 said, Dad, she can't play with that. We live on Kinsley.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
That's right. You said two things here too that I gotta stay with you.
Okay, so
in one respect you said that they left out who is they left out the circumstances where
the media they didn't want it public.
Because why are they gaining from that, you think?
I think that they gaining they would have lost a lot of public backing. Like a lot of people that just looked at it as a black and white issue is like, well, why he have a gun? But when you tap into autism and special needs kids, now you touching a lot of different homes.
Okay.
Because on the west side of Cleveland, they very actively have special need programs for all the kids, like for family involvement over in Independence and places like that, and even in Euclid, where you can go get involved because people have special needs kids. So when you start tapping into certain things that's tugging at people's heart, that kind of changed the perception of how people view things.
And the story don't sell.
And the story don't sell.
Right. So do you think that the media and perhaps, in due respect to the parents, they benefit off of that story not being told?
Yes, I think so.
And do you think that was a justice? Did they do a justice or injustice to?
I think it did an injustice because I think the police officer might have been found guilty. Or it might, you know what I'm saying? It might have went to trial where he could have been found guilty if that element had been shared. But because it wasn't, I think he got off.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Timothy McGinty did a great job of not letting that information be made public. And that's why we voted his butt out of there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So you talk about the vote. You talk about the vote. And when you talk about McGinty, one of the things that I've said is the people that didn't vote, some people, young people didn't even know that the prosecutors are voted on. You know that?
Right.
And so whenever a prosecutor stays in office, it's a culmination of us not doing our job. So in saying that, do you think that McGinty was the problem, or was the story the problem? You get what I'm saying? Was McGinty the problem? Has he always had a problem, or was that particular situation the problem?
I think McGinty had always had a problem and had always been a problem, and I think he always tailored people's offenses the way that he wanted, the narrative, the way that he wanted it to be. And he knew how to dress it to get the court of public opinion to judge certain situations. I really believe that. And so, like as you said about us not voting in the other elections, that is very important. One thing that Obama did preach, and I'm going to continue to preach, is change starts from the bottom up, not from the top down.
All politics are local.
Yeah, and you got to start with your own local. And you put the right people locally in, and then they help you put the people in the White House in, and then you could effectively, make change. I mean, the Republicans really didn't suffer with Obama in office because they controlled the House. Correct. They controlled the local elections in your city. So they didn't feel an effect. But right now, we may feel an effect because the Republicans still control the House. They still control the city elections, and now they control the White House.
Everything. And what do you say to the people that didn't think it was important for them? I mean, first of all, there's two unlikely candidates. Nobody liked them. That's just the way it is. And what do you say to the people that said they couldn't have voted for Hillary? They stood home. I know some people that say, I'm sorry, I know Donald Trump would have won, but I just could not vote for Hillary. What do you say? What do you say?
When you say stuff like that, you kind of did vote for Donald Trump, though. At the end of the day, I got a son that's 24, and I'm going to be honest, my son, he didn't vote for Trump because he didn't vote because he was out of town, but he was going to vote for Trump. I'm not going to disown my son because he has his own opinion and his own right to do what he wants to do. I'm proud of my son for exercising his right to vote. I can't tell him who to vote for. I voted for who I wanted to vote for, and he has to vote for who he wants to vote for as a man. But I do have a problem, like you say, with people that don't vote. I mean, it's so many people on so many levels that we disrespectful to our ancestors by not voting. I mean, people die, and this is the other thing. We don't even have the right. It's not an amendment. When I say this, it's not even an amendment for African Americans to vote in America. It is an act, the Voter Right Act. If they wanted to take that away, then black people will really understand what it's like to not have your vote count.
Right.
They will understand what it's like to be counted as 3/5 of a person. See, that's when your vote don't count. You count it as one individual now. It's just like I say, it's a lack of education in our community.
And talk about education, and you know, to bring up Trump is something you said, because I know a young lady right now, a black young lady that voted for Trump, and I got to bring this out. Against all of the specifications against him. I mean, it'd be different if he said, you know, it's something totally against our neighborhood. But to be disrespectful to all of the people, constituents on the other side of the coin, and still get our vote, I'm curious of how you see that. I mean, I know how I see it. How do you see that people can ignore that and still vote? How do you think people can ignore that?
I mean, I hate to say this because I talked to one of my friends who actually lives not too far from here. And he told me that he couldn't vote for Hillary Clinton because he one time broke up with a chick that lied as much as she did. And he kept giving her chances to tell the truth. And every time he gave her a chance, she told another lie.
See, now I'm glad you brought that, because that's what I was going at. Because I understand that the black preachers don't want black women in the church, don't want to run the church. Black men have a problem with women being in authority figures. Right? And so whenever I hear black people say they voted for Trump, I always look at the individual and ask the question, what's really going on? And so you saw it the same way I see it. Do you think that problem itself is not just going to stop with Trump? Do you think there's a perpetual problem? It's actually going to continue with other things?
I think it could continue with other things. And people felt like Trump was, even though he was all these negative things, he appeared to them to never shy away from whatever that was messed up. Okay. Like, did you say that about women? Well, yeah, I said it about women, but Bill said it too. Like, he just threw other people under the bus. You know what I'm saying?
I know. So, are we going to get past that? You said a lot about our people. You revealed some things here that are just great reality for some of our people. You have not said, to summarize what you said, you have laid less blame on white people and more blame on our people.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, yes.
Expound on it a little bit more, because I said something, maybe you don't totally agree with that.
I do think that we need to be more responsible. I think it's on us to share our knowledge. I think it's on us, like, to go back to, you know, my father and them. I never, even if I made $1 million, don't want to live anywhere but the hood. I think that all the people that made a big difference in the black community that we respect, they were in the struggle. And so when we in the struggle together and we come up together, we all came up. I don't see, you know, I've been to New York, downtown Manhattan, and there's a Jewish community there, right?
Okay, yeah.
Them Jews don't move away from each other. They got a strong community. The Asians down on 30th, they don't move away from each other. They got a real strong community. My mother's Puerto Rican, and the Puerto Ricans, they stick together. They got a real strong community. You just don't leave where you from because you quote unquote made it. When you make it, you try to teach other people to make it like you. You know, a guy told me something long ago, a Caucasian businessman. He said, the problem with poor people is, well, the thing with rich people is, rich people give away ideas because they know ain't nobody gonna do anything with it. But poor people hoard ideas because they scared somebody gonna steal it and then don't nobody benefit from it anyway because they never do nothing with it either.
Bucket of crabs.
You understand what I'm saying? And it's like we just got to get past the way we think a lot of times in order to grow. I mean, that's the reason why I try to reach back with all. I mean, I could be like, I'm working. Why I gotta help somebody else get a job? I know how to fill out an application. Why I gotta help him fill out an application? Do you know how many people I help fill out applications that really don't know how to spell? That alone can disturb you from getting, not help you not get a job. I teach people about being able to type 20 words a minute. Do you know that there is software in online applications that if you can't type 20 words a minute, it'll throw your application in the garbage can? And that application, it counts misspelled words and backspaces and pauses. I mean, technology will leave you behind.
Okay, and do how much? Because you said something earlier, I was trying to let you finish that story.
Right.
I'm going to hone in on something. How many white people have helped you with your organization, as valuable as it is, versus how many blacks have literally just turned you down? Not answer the phone is different, but how many have turned you down and said we don't have time to help?
Well, through my relationship with one individual, a lot of Caucasian people were very, very receptive to things that had to do with breaking the cycle. He took me to a lot of almost all white meetings, and they respected, you know, some of them even donated money, donated time, donated, you know, different services that they might have. As far as, and I'll just say the county, you know, I've ran into a lot of opposition because the county is the county, the government is the government, you know what I mean? And they don't really like anybody that might come in on their federal dollar type thing.
Okay.
And so they handpick to, you know, be with other organizations that they think would help further their cause. In the black community specifically, I really haven't had a lot of, I mean, I've had some people be supportive, but as far as financially or want to invest, no. I've partnered with some people.
So, and it's back to that thing, so they could share into it, but they wouldn't like say, hey, here's what you need. I'm straight.
Right.
So you find that disturbing? Isn't that kind of disturbing though? Because you have mostly black people, and you're not getting help from black people.
Correct. And then sometimes when I help black people get jobs, they tell me that I ain't really helping, but they working.
Right. So it's psychological. I mean, this whole conversation we're talking about that we been brainwashed, or are we brainwashing ourselves?
I think it might be a combination of the two. I think we have been I think sometimes we say we've been brainwashed. Again, this goes to the repeating thing. We repeat what somebody told us. So we've been brainwashed. But in saying that, we brainwashing ourselves.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? Because we don't really have validity in saying it sometimes. Like, we've been brainwashed. So if I ask, well, what we've been brainwashed from? Well, I don't really know. See, they don't really know what they've been brainwashed from, you know?
Yeah, so what do you think, and in closing, what do you think is the biggest cause of, apparently, because you had 243,000 people on probation, and you have 51,000 people in the prison population still left, why do we keep going back and forth in prison? Again, I'm going back to the same thing. I'm trying to get you to come straight out with it. Is it a problem that's been designed for us to go back in jail, or are we hurting ourselves by constantly going back in and doing some of the same things and not taking advantage of programs like yours?
I think it has been designed by the system, and I think it started back when they brought welfare and food stamps into our community.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And they said that, I'm just saying, and they took the black man out the home. You know, at first the woman could get the welfare and food stamps, you know, the food stamps, and then they said, well, if you got a man in the home, you can't get this. So the man would take himself off the lease,
okay,
you know, and he'd tiptoe back home at night, and so she could get the stamps and the cash assistance and all that. And I think that kind of led to the black man not being as relevant in his community, in his in his own household and then in the community. I think a lack of strong black men as leaders is a real big cause of the lack of education, the high recidivism rate, you know, the single homes, the deaths, and all of that. I think that is a big cause that we bought into that. Because like one thing that Steve Perry said in his book was the first chapter of his book is called Mama's Boy. So it talks about how a mama raises a young boy. So for example, how many times you been in Walmart and you heard a lady say, I don't need no man, this all the man I need, and he 9. He ain't got no job, he ain't got no responsibility, and he got a protected mom. 9 turning 19, turning 29, now he 39, you watching his kids, his name on the juice in the refrigerator, he still ain't got no job, no responsibility, and you still college. And so I think that things like that lead to the downward spiral in our community. I think that more men need to step up and be men. I think that men that are men need to mentor young men that seem to be in a single family home, that seem to be lost. You know, I look at, you know, one of the people that I really respect, and I never met him, and I'm gonna tell you somebody I would love to meet. I would love to meet LeBron James. Because on the outside looking in, I just look at him and I look at his mother. And his mother was a lady that they say was on drugs, right? But his mother seen her son had a skill. And she aligned him with 4 or 5 men that could mentor her son. Because she felt, I can't teach my son how to be a man. So she let these 5 people mentor her son into the man that he is today. He's a father, he a husband, you never hear about anything him doing messed up in the street. He a community leader, he a world leader, he a great businessman. You understand what I'm saying? But he had 5 men teach him how to be one when his mother couldn't. And that's the type of community I'm talking about. We have to teach these young boys how to be men. We got to come up with something to do that.
Is it too far gone, since you brought up that it is a plan to take the men out of the home, that the black women, and somebody going to get mad at me for saying this, but the black women now have trained themselves that they're not going to let it change. They're fine with it just like it is. Because I'm sure you can find a bunch of men on the other side of this camera out in YouTube land that'll say, yes, the women are now so position that they won't let us in. I know some women are not, but I know some women are so sold out to say, look, I don't need a man, I got this.
So let me say this in the most best way I can.
Bro, it's a rabbit hole here.
so this is what I understand. A woman, and I'm gonna use this term. Am I allowed to say this cuss word? Okay. I just want to make sure. So a woman don't want a bitch as a man. If she wants one, then she'll be a lesbian. But if you find a woman, I don't care who she is and how much she talk that I don't need a man stuff, when she meet a man, she know it. And she'll line up with her man, regardless of all that stuff she talk. But these women is beating bitches.
So you think it falls back on the man again? And it lets her be who she is.
But it kind of falls on who she is, because this is the funny thing. The women that say that they don't like men that are bitches, they are raising their son to be the same man that they don't want. Because this dude is a bitch because he a mama's boy. But you raising your son to be one. Because what do you say? Where is that? Well, his daddy ain't nothing. And yada, 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 yada. That's one cycle. When I say breaking the cycle, we got a lot of cycles to break. And I talked about this at a place that I went to down at the Friendly Inn. And I talked to them women. They was giving out Christmas gifts. It was family night. It was 30 women with no man. Who y'all make these babies with? But hey, daddy ain't this and hey, daddy ain't that. First of all, don't ever let your kid hear you say nothing bad about his dad. Because his dad is his hero. That's who he looked to be a man. And how you treat that man is how he gonna expect to be treated. And I say that to my male friends too. They got custody of their daughters. I got custody of my daughter. I would never say nothing bad to my daughter about her mother. Even if I thought it, and I don't. But But even if I thought it, I'm not going to say that, because regardless of anything I do, I could have a wife, I could have a girlfriend, or whatever. They will never be the hero to my daughter that her mother always will be. And the thing, Latoya Jones, she has a Live with Purpose group. The best thing that she does is she does that father and daddy, that daughter and dad dance, right? Father and daughter dance. My daughter and me went on our first date with my son and my granddaughter. We dressed up, we opened the door for them, we pulled their chair out for them, we cut their food up for them, we danced all night with them, we took pictures, we treated them like a man is supposed to treat a woman. Because I want my daughter to know how she's supposed to be treated. That's the type of things that we need to do in our community a lot, and we don't do them enough. You know, things that I try to do as the PTA president of my children's school, and I've never been able to do it, but one of the things I had always wanted to do was to do a family dinner. You know how many families in the black community don't get a chance to eat dinner together? Because somebody, the mama working 2 or 3 jobs, the son doing this, the daughter doing this, they never get to sit down and eat together. That's important. And you know how you can tell that doesn't happen? Go to Red Lobster on Sunday or one of the local restaurants, and you sit at your table and you say, damn, them kids ain't got no home training. You know what I mean?
That's right. Brother, look at that camera, and I want you to say something that you want people to remember about you, your organization, and the work that you're doing, and even the issues that you may see.
Again, my name is Mike Jones from Breaking the Cycle. Some things that I would like to see done in our community is I just want to see some unity and some education. I think that we as a people need to educate each other. We need to stick together. We need to uplift each other, meaning encouraging. We need to edify each other. We need to empathize with each other. We just need to stick together and get some things done, because as Steve Perry says, we need to man up, because no one is coming to save us.
Thank you. This has been EB's Real Talk, where we go down the rabbit hole and answer the questions that you won't answer and give you the answers that maybe you don't want to hear. EB's Real Talk. See you soon. Hey there, brothers and sisters. This is EB Smith. Real Talk is me helping you by giving you information I know you will be inspired to be a greater you. And with a greater you, our communities are better and our world is better. But I want to reach more people. To do that, I need your help. Will you subscribe and share my videos? Tell everyone what we're talking about here on Real Talk. Another way to partner with me, donate $1. That's donating just $1. Go to PayPal and send ebsrealtalk@gmail.com. Go to PayPal, donate $1, send ebsrealtalk@gmail.com. Since we don't like the world we live in, let's change it together. Thank you. Writing a book can be daunting, but once you get past the daunting, is always the cost of getting it published. And many times that usually hold people up from doing it. Uptown Publishing is offering supporters of EB's Real Talk a wonderful opportunity to have their books published for only $250. That's 75% of the regular standard publishing package price. You supply the book cover art, a synopsis of your book, and your pre-edited manuscript, and here's what you'll get: 100% control of your book, 100% profits from your book, and your own dashboard. That's $250, which is 75% of a regular standard price. 100% of control of your book, 100% of profits. If you're interested in it, go to uptownmediaventures.com. Go to uptownmediaventures.com and go to the Contact Us page and put in EB's Real Talk, or mention EB's Real Talk via email at uptownliterary@gmail.com. That's uptownliterary@gmail.com. Congratulations to all of you to your future as an author.